Ready to take your favorite WagerTalk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The WagerTalk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like WagerTalk Today, Bet on It, and the Opening Line Report, plus browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for WagerTalk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.
Hey guys, welcome to Inside the Distance. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com. Joined with me, as always, my fellow MMA experts, Kyle Anthony from WagerTalk.com and Matt Kowalis from SportsMemo.com. We're going to do a quick little recap about the insane card from last Saturday, Pereira and Adesanya. And then we're going to look towards UFC Fight Night, Lewis Spivac. We're going to break down the main event. We're going to talk about our fights that we're excited to watch, and then we're going to give out our parlay buster, our fight to go the distance, and our heads up or money line that's 200, minus 200 or less. Gentlemen, it's going to be an incredible storyline, this Pereira and Adesanya. It's going to be the gift that keeps on giving. So let's just get right into it. But real quick, guys, I have to pose this question to you. What was more surprising? Was it Moicano becoming a fan favorite by giving one of the all-time post-fight interviews with Joe Rogan? Or was it learning that this was the first fight that Ryan Spann actually trained for? Well, what was the most
the Ryan Spann, hands down. When I heard that, I was floored. I was dying.
I'm going to agree with them on that. I mean, first of all, why are you even admitting that? That's like ridiculous that you're even coming out saying that. But I'm going to go Ryan Spann.
It's got to be crazy. Ryan Spann. This guy's a ranked UFC fighter that doesn't train. Unbelievable. So, just two of the great moments from that card. Kyle Anthony's coming off a big week. He's got a 4% pack up at WagerTalk.com. You can grab all of Matt's plays up at SportsMemo.com. I'm going with one play and one play only up at WagerTalk.com, so you can grab that. So, all right, guys, we're going to go to the classroom. Can't predict the future without learning from the past, so we're going to talk about what did we learn from the last event. And, Kyle, this was an event that, A, you did really well at, and, B, you were there to witness it. So talk to us about the last event. Give us your take being there, seeing everything live, and what did you learn from the last event?
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure. This is one of the best events, I think, maybe of all time, up there. I mean, top 5 somewhere. I was at UFC 217 about 5 years ago. That one where you had Bisping lose, you had Cody Garbrandt lose, you had Joanna lose, you had 3 champions go down, same kind of fashion, knockout. This was kind of the same thing, a bunch of finishes, highlight reel finishes, comebacks with Pereira. So a lot of great things, but 281, I would say, is up there on it. I brought somebody who had never been to a UFC event, and this was her first one, and now she wants to fly around the country to go to like every event. I'm like, they're not all like this. They're not all like this. They're good, but this was absolutely incredible. But what I learned is that Alex Pereira is going to win the rematch. He is absolutely going to win the rematch. I think you're already seeing plus money. They're already talking about kind of, I guess, lines are coming out if they're going to fight again. But really the thing for me is that this was the best chance Adesanya could get defeating Pereira. I think that the big part about this was, hey, 2 times in kickboxing, he beat him, but Adesanya has that MMA experience. He's got the ability to be out there. He's been in big fights. All of these things kind of going in that storyline of, does Pereira have the ability to do it? And now we've seen he is able to do it. Now we've seen he came back. Now, there are a few moving parts to this. The first part, I think, is that when you're looking at this fight, is that first round. I mean, you look at the first round, I have Pereira winning that first round up until about 5 seconds left in that fight, or in that round, when Pereira got clipped, and then Adesanya really rocked him, and almost, I mean, it was bad. I mean, you push that same shot back 20 seconds, it could be a different story. So there's definitely that, and you can go either way with that. If it didn't happen, if it happened earlier, of course. But still, he was winning that round. Second round was Pereira. He went out there, got some nice leg kicks, outlanded him, got that takedown. Even in that third round, now a lot of people are talking about that third round as, hey, Izzy got him down, or I think it was third or fourth, wherever he got him down, and he kept him there. But that was really Pereira's mistake. It wasn't Adesanya getting him down. It was Pereira making a mistake on the trip, and Adesanya kind of fell on top of him and kept him there. Otherwise, all those attempts that Adesanya had really fell flat. It really wasn't any attempts there. Now, he was outlanding him, but Pereira was playing the game that Adesanya wants, at range, trading leg kicks. That's really exactly what Adesanya wants to do. Up until that fifth round where they said, you got to go for it, put combinations together, put pressure on him, move forward. And as soon as he did that, you could even see Adesanya knew, well, one, he knew it was coming because obviously it was the end of the fight and the fifth round, all that stuff. But once he did that, it smothered the kicking game. It smothered any of his opportunity to kind of move around the cage or have movement, have footwork. And then he ended up landing the big shot and getting the finish. But I really think that was his best shot. I don't think Adesanya, I don't think it gets better for him here. I think it only gets better for Pereira, training more, getting more into the grappling, the clinching, all those things. So I learned that Pereira is going to win the rematch. So we can bookmark this, and in 6 months or whatever they do it, we can revisit this video.
Love it. Man, did you spoil your guest? Holy cow. Yeah, like not all. Wow. We're not going to the Apex, and you're going to get that kind of excitement.
Right.
No, you're going to want to be out of there during the prelims. Matt, coming to you. What did you learn from last event?
Yeah, so for starters, I have to agree with Kyle there. I definitely think that Alex Pereira is the real deal. He's still very raw within the UFC, and really the only thing that worked very well for Izzy was randomly the takedowns, and he had some good ground game. That's something that Pereira can work on. So in the rematch, if Izzy doesn't have that, I think it'd be Pereira the whole way. But for me, what I learned from this UFC card has to do with the retirement fights. Okay, we all watched Frankie Edgar get brutally KO'd once again by Chris Gutierrez. And the UFC is one of those sports where it definitely can pull on your heartstrings a little bit. You see someone like Frankie Edgar. You see someone like Donald Cerrone. And you're like, maybe, just maybe, they have one last hurrah. Maybe I'll bet on my guy for old time's sake. And they lose, and they lose, and they lose. You look at Frankie Edgar, got KO'd by Chris Gutierrez. Donald Cerrone, submission by Jim Miller. Marlon Moraes, TKO by Song Yadong. Uriah Hall lost to Andre Muniz. Luke Rockhold to Paulo Costa. So, not all of them are knockouts, but all of these are losses. And a lot of them are in that range from minus 170 to minus 250. And again, I think it's because these are fan favorites, so people will still bet them. So going forward, even if it is around a minus 200 price tag, maybe even a little up, it's something that I'm going to start hammering because a lot of these guys are at that age too where they're 40 plus. They should have potentially retired already. And once again, like I said before, you're just hoping for one last hoorah out of your guy, and it's just not happening. So going forward, I'm going to be betting against the retirement fights.
It's a great call. It was one of those plays where it was so obvious afterwards. It was just like, oh my God.
Yes.
It's like, oh, why did we not lay the house on that? And you know what? It makes sense.
He has no chin. What am I doing?
Yeah. He's retiring for a reason. His last hurrah was 3 fights ago. So what did I learn? Well, when fights smell like violence, just take the fight to not go the distance. You could even parlay some of these. And we even went over a couple of these fights on our show last week. We talked about Olberg and Negumereanu. That one was never going the distance. Reyes and Spann, that was never going the distance. Frivola, Azatar, that was never going the distance. You have to be careful because, they're not always this obvious. But I felt like last card, there were several fights that were just like, there's no way these are going the distance. And you could have parlayed a couple of them and gotten plus money at those. So, and this also piggybacks on a point, Matt, that you made, I believe it was last week, saying that UFC is just gearing up more and more for these finishes. And the judges are rewarding strikes and damages as opposed to, lay and pray or pushing up against the fence. And you have these KO and submission bonuses. It's just trending more and more towards trying to get a finish. So if you know that that you got two guys that are come out and bang, if you know you got two guys with glass chins or just horrible submission defense, just don't be afraid to take these to not go the distance and take some of those under. So that is what I learned from the last fight. All right, guys, we're going to get into the main event breakdown. We've got Derrick Lewis and Sergey Spivac. Boy, Derrick Lewis coming off a tough fight where he technically got knocked out, but I've gone back and watched that, and it was an early stoppage. So I don't know how much we take away the loss from that one. And then we've got Sergey Spivac, who's been improving. And guys, do we have that picture of Sergey Spivac what he looks like when he look at this? 2000. Look at that! Great job, graphics team. So the 2019. that is when he entered the UFC and made his debut. Now look at him. I mean, give the guy credit. That is quite the transformation.
That's a big difference. He looked like a polar bear.
Yeah, he fits it. He fits it a little. He fits it a little better there.
Yes, yeah. So, Matt, I'm coming to you first. We got Lewis and Spivac. What do you expect when these two guys step into the octagon?
Yeah, so for this fight, I kind of look at this as I do a lot of Derrick Lewis's fights. I believe this is one of those fights where, Spivac is going to have advantages in many different areas, and he might be dominating throughout the entire fight. But Derrick Lewis always has that puncher's chance. When looking at Derrick Lewis as well, he has won 2 of his last 5 fights. To your point, losing to Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Pavlovich. And after losing those 2 fights, in 2021, Derrick Lewis was one of the title contenders, and he has fallen from grace pretty fast, if I'm being honest. So going into this fight now, after losing to Tuivasa, after losing to Pavlovich, I'm also kind of wondering how much motivation Derrick Lewis has left at this point in his career. And I know we'll see it in this fight Saturday, but because of that, I am giving the edge to Spivac. I know he is a minus 200 favorite, and he's a minus 200 favorite for a reason. But, with Derrick Lewis, you obviously always have to worry about that power. It's just one of those guys where one shot can end a fight really quick. But with Spivac, he is a grappling specialist. He's very good on the ground. One thing with Derrick Lewis is, though, when you get him on the ground, he is tough to keep there. But once again, Derrick Lewis isn't that young anymore. On top of that, he's getting to be 37 years of age, and this is kind of a make or break fight for him, and I'm actually leaning towards the break. I don't think he's going to get this done. I think he's getting a little too old, 37 years of age, and then on top of that, like I said before, I'm wondering how much motivation he has left after being a champion contender and then falling all the way from grace, and, to get back to that level, you're going to have to rip off 3, 4, 5 fights in a row to be a contender once again, and I just don't know if he has that much gas left in the tank. So because of that, I'm going to go with Spivac here. I think he uses his grappling to try and keep Lewis's power at bay, and I think it works for the majority of the fight. So I'm going to go Spivac here.
Spivac's down to minus 200 on DraftKings. Kyle, what do you make of Lewis and Spivac here?
Yeah, I think the one thing that is the most, prevalent thing on here is the grappling. I mean, obviously, we know that what Spivac is going to do, he's going to look for these takedowns. And yes, absolutely, to Matt's point, I mean, it's tough to keep Derrick Lewis down. Somehow he can get up, and he has these basically brute strength. He just uses it to get himself back to his feet. But the issue here that I believe, it's just the way that he does this takedowns compared to somebody like Curtis Blades who shoots double legs. You've got somebody like Spivac, who is more inside the clinch, more inside, does these trips and finds ways to kind of leverage himself inside the clinch and to get you down. So with that being said, I think that the relentlessness of these takedowns is really the path for Spivac. Now, I think that Lewis can get up quickly, early. I think in the first round, it's possible he can get up, he can start to find space. But when you're looking at what Spivac does, he will tirelessly continue to latch on, hold on to you, bring you down. Even if you get back up, he's going to latch back on, take you down, hold you down. And when you're looking even at just, of course, the bomb is always there for Lewis. I mean, he could land it any point. We've seen it. He can do it when he's losing in the 5th round. He could land a big shot. But again, to Matt's point, he's 37 years old. I don't know what kind of motivation that he really has. Optically, he's not really there anymore. I mean, he's a fan favorite. People love the guy. There's a lot of great things that he's done in the cage, but it's just at this point, it almost doesn't make sense. Plus, the style at which Lewis fights really kind of works into what Spivac does well. And Lewis is low volume, less movement, not much footwork, where Spivac can get inside, get his hands on you, look for the takedowns, and Lewis is only going to get slower as this 5-round fight keeps going on, while the other way, Spivac's going to have the wrestling. Spivac's going to have the cardio. He's going to have the leverage when it comes to a style. So I actually really like Spivac here. I think he goes out there inside the distance, finds a finish. I think early it could get a little dicey where Lewis is throwing the big shots, but I think going into that second, into that third round or wherever, I think that he really wears on him and gets that finish. I mean, you're looking at inside the distance is anywhere from like minus 135 up to, minus 155. I think is a really good price getting off the bigger number, but I think Spivac does this inside the distance and gets the job done.
You guys broke it down as good as I possibly can. I don't have a whole lot to add. I mean, yeah, you could take, Derrick Lewis. If you're going to take Derrick Lewis, don't just take the money line. Just take him to win inside the distance, because I find it hard to believe he's going to win a 5-rounder. I think it's Spivac all day. It wouldn't surprise me if this doesn't go the distance and he gets the finish. I was looking at over 1.5 rounds. I just can't get to the window on that one, just because of the one-shot power, and also I have no idea how motivated Lewis is going to be when he gets down on the ground, because Spivac is going to get it there at some point. So I think we all lean Spivac, and you could look at Spivac inside the distance, or maybe by submission, maybe by KO if he gets the ground and pound. So there's your main event breakdown. We're going to get into our fights that we are excited to watch. Could be because we like it stylistically. Could be because we think we got a good betting angle. Kyle, coming to you first. What fight are you excited to watch this weekend?
The one I'm looking at is Andre Fialho versus Muslim Salikov. And the biggest reason I think that there's just some interesting things that kind of go into this fight. And you've got all these accolades from Muslim Salikov. He was the the master of sport in wushu, which I believe is kickboxing with takedowns, but he's also been in the Olympics. He's had kickboxing accolades on his own just there too. So there's a lot of good things that he's done, even beating Francisco Trinaldo. That's good. But the one thing here now is you look at it is that, he didn't look that great going against Li Jingliang. And, it's starting to show his age. He's 38 years old now. You've seen him kind of get, tired in spots where he never really has been tired. But I think the interesting part is, on the other side, is Andre is 10 years younger, and he's really on the other side spectrum. He's younger. He's kind of entering his prime now. I mean, he's 28 years old, kind of looking to kind of get things together, working with Henry Hooft. I think that's going to help his striking too. But the one thing here is you're in the apex cage, and Muslim loves to have the range. He loves to have the space. He can use some grappling and some takedowns, but he loves to have the space. He's got these crazy spin kicks that he throws at any point. And really, Andre's going to look to kind of get in tight, use the boxing, use his hand speed, and I think that's where it's going to be very interesting to see if he can deal with the pressure and if he can kind of work in space. So I think it's one of the interesting fights, and it's one I'll definitely be watching.
Correct me if I'm wrong on this one, Kyle. I mean, gas tank issues for both of them?
That's a possibility too. I think Muslim, maybe a hair more on Muslim. I mean, he looked like, beginning of the second, it was for his last fight, it almost looked like, plus Muslim has only fought one time each year since 2017. So this is not some active guy that's looking to go up the ranks at the end of his career. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
Nice. Great breakdown of Andre Fialho and Muslim Salikov. The fight I am excited to watch, Natalia Silva versus Teresa Bleda. And if you did not see Silva's UFC debut, wow, was it impressive. She is a firecracker. She reminds me a lot of Demetrius Johnson. Super, super fast, incredible power on a small frame. And she's 13-5 in her career, but those losses came really early in her career. She's only 25 years old, but she's been fighting since 2015. crazy enough, her last loss came in 2017 at the Thunder Fight 14 to, of all people, Marina Rodriguez. So that's her last loss. It's Marina Rodriguez. I know, right?
Wow.
So she's won 7 straight fights, including her UFC debut in June. She has really, really impressive power, and she is so fast on her feet, and she has big time cardio. She was not tired at all at the end of the third round. Great kicks, head kicks, leg kicks, and just super quick hands. She fought Jasmine Jasudavicius. She stuffed takedowns. She completed several impressive judo throws. By the end of the fight, the crowd was so behind her because she's exciting. And she's fighting Teresa Bleda, who I actually know well because she fought on Contender Series. So Teresa Bleda is young. She just turned 21. She came up through the Russian leagues, and she fought really bad competition. She was on Contender Series. She won by decision, did not get the finish. She is a takedown and grappling, we'll call it specialist, but she was very unimpressive on Contender Series. It's kind of like she got a takedown and then lay on top of a lesser opponent, land a few strikes here or there. The biggest red flag for her was early in the second round, when the fight was on the feet, she got exhausted, and she was fighting a woman with not a whole lot of skill, and this woman was trying to take Teresa Bleda down. It was a terrible strategy. And if Bleda didn't get that fight on the ground, she was going to gas out and probably be done in the second round. It's a really, really bad spot for her. This is your classic grappler versus striker. I think that Silva's speed is going to be way too much for Bleda. And guys, I am betting this one. I have already bet this one. Silva's at -165. I think she's going to surprise a lot of people, especially Teresa Bleda with her speed and her power. And if Bleda doesn't get the takedowns, it's going to be a real quick match, and Bleda is going to be in a world of hurt. So I'm excited to see Silva because I think she's going to move up through the rankings pretty quick. But as far as betting, I will absolutely fire on this one. I already have. I encourage everyone to do the same. So, Matt, coming to you, Matt Kowalis on sportsmemo.com. What fight are you excited to watch? Muted. You're muted. Matt, you're muted.
I'm good now.
That moment
we
when
saw
we
your
realized
emotions
we're muted
in real time. We saw.
So for this fight, I like Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Ian Cutelaba. Yeah, you guys missed me butcher it the first time, so
well said.
Didn't do better the second. But for this fight, this is going to be an explosive fight between both guys, and I like this fight because I think this is one that is definitely going inside the distance. It's currently -400 to finish inside the distance. And I also think the under 1.5 rounds is definitely in play here as well. When looking at Cutelaba, he's had 13 fights in the UFC and now has a record of 5-7. A lot of those fights were very close, but 9 of those 12 fights finished inside the distance once again. As for Kennedy, he's 4-3 within the UFC, and of those 7 fights, 5 of those have finished with inside the distance, but both of them stylistically are somewhat different. As for Kennedy, he is a powerful striker. He's more specific. He did start taking people down last fight. I watched that fight back. He had 5 takedowns in that bout, and it's not something that he typically does, but maybe he's showing people that his game has evolved. He can do it, but mostly he relies on his power. He is a very powerful striker, and lucky for him, Cutelaba has been a little bit chinny as of late. So now, though, when looking at Cutelaba, he is somewhat opposite. He does have the power to knock you out. He likes to kind of box in a phone booth a little bit. But in this fight, I do think he's going to rely on his takedown game and his grappling here, or also his submission game. I do think he is a live dog in this fight. He's +148 underdog here. And again, he's lost, I believe, 2 fights in a row. He's looking for a win. He really needs a win. But when looking at Kennedy, this guy has an 8-inch reach advantage in this bout. He's already powerful. Cutelaba has been knocked out numerous times in his career. So it's tough for me not to go with Kennedy, especially due to the fact that you got that 8-inch reach advantage. You have the power advantage. And then in addition to that, he has an 81% takedown defense. So I do think Cutelaba could get in some trouble pretty early if, in fact, those takedowns do not work. And because of that, I'm going to side with Kennedy in this fight. You notice I'm not saying the last name because I don't want to butcher it again. But the under 1.5 rounds is also in play, I think. That's minus 105. Both of these guys are going to come out swinging. If it's Cutelaba, I think he gets it done via submission. So if you wanted specific outcome, you could check on that. And then as for Kennedy, I think his would be KO or TKO. But in this fight, I'm going under 1.5 rounds, and I'm going to side with Kennedy Nzechukwu.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can't.
So those are our fights. Those are our fights we're excited to watch.
It was a good attempt.
Sally Cobb,
Yeah, thanks,
Natalia
man.
Silva, Teresa Plata, and Kennedy versus Cutelaba. So, excited to look at those in cash. Love that underlook on Kennedy and Cutelaba. So, all right, guys, let's take a look at our parlay buster, our distance fight, and our money line. Kyle, I'm going to come to you first. We're going to take a look at the Parlay Buster. This is a fight that we think some people are going to put into their parlays, and we're just a little bit worried about it. Who do you got for this week's Parlay Buster?
We're going back to the same one, Kennedy Nzechukwu. I think that's
There's no I in there. There's no I.
Versus in Cutelaba. I mean, Matt talked about a lot of this stuff, and the first part is why, I'm a little nervous about putting Kennedy in anything, is one, I get why the line's kind of shifting that way. Cutelaba has been a moron in certain spots where he's faked that he is hurt, and we've seen that. He's made bad decisions in tight spots. He has terrible cardio and terrible cardio management on top of that. But there are some good things, and he does have big power. He does throw big overhand shots, and he actually has pretty good wrestling. Now, it's not that he can do this over time and consistently wrestle and grapple and all those things. He's not going to have the cardio to go 3 rounds and do that. But to Matt's point, he does have good takedown defense. I think he could keep it standing. And, Kennedy does have that 8-inch reach advantage, and that is worrisome, or at least if anyone's looking to be back in Cutelaba, that's worrisome. But one thing about Kenny is he doesn't really use it that well. He doesn't really stay at range. He pretty much still looks to get inside, doesn't play the range game very well, keeping and utilizing. And a lot of times I use Amanda Nunes as kind of an example where Nunes pretty much, she doesn't have this massive reach, but she extends her arm completely and still has power. Kennedy does not have that. He does not have the power. I don't think he's got the ability. He has made a lot of mistakes too when he's in there. He's had cardio issues as well too. But I think the biggest part when you're looking at somebody like Cutelaba is it's going to be a tough stylistic matchup. He is going to be in Kennedy's face. He's going to force a brawl. He's going to be the bully there. And both of these guys are very hittable with bad cardio. But I think that's a spot where getting in tight, getting inside that reach is going to help Cutelaba and land a shot. So I look at this as kind of maybe you could give Kennedy a little bit of an advantage when you're looking at the line. Maybe this should be minus 125 or minus 130. Because I think this is really a toss-up. I don't really put him as such this high-level guy. I think both of these guys are kind of even. So it's a dog or pass where I look at Cutelaba as the spot. But for me, Kennedy, I think it's a stay away, and I think there's better spots on the card.
Good stuff. Be aware if you're putting him in your parlays. Matt, coming to you. Let's talk a fight to go the distance or not go the distance. Which one did you have circled?
Yeah, so the one that I had circled is Kevin Natividad versus Ricky Turcios. So this is a decision, is minus 175. And a lot of this for me actually has to do with Ricky Turcios. When I've watched Turcios back, he's a fun fighter. He's good on his feet. He likes to pressure. He'll mix in some takedowns a little bit, grappling control, things of that nature. But when watching him, he is one of those fighters who he really doesn't exactly go for that knockout. He's one of those fighters who he likes to throw 80% punches. He likes to keep pressuring you, keep coming forward, and he is someone who can take a shot. So because of that, I really do like this fight to go to the decision. When looking at Natividad, there wasn't a lot to go off of. And both of his fights before the UFC and within the UFC, he got knocked out, actually. And when looking at Turcios, he doesn't really have the power in my eyes to do that. He does throw knees, he does throw kicks, so there's always that chance you can get clipped by something along those lines. But again, I just don't think he has the power to do that. And then when looking at Turcios, he actually has a 56% strike defense, and Natividad has a 26% accuracy. So I think Ricky is already tough enough to hit. You know, he's quick with his in and out movement. He's light on his feet. He throws 80% punches, jabs. So a lot of the time when you're throwing a punch, he's already hitting you, knocking you off balance, things of that nature. And for me, I just think Turcios is more of a decision-style fighter. I actually favor him in this fight as well. And because of that, I do like this fight to go to the decision. And if I were to go any direction with it, it would be Turcios by decision in this bout. So again, I like Kevin Natividad and Ricky Turcios to go to a decision at -175.
Love that. I watched Ricky when he was on The Ultimate Fighter. He's a really good fighter, but you're right. The power just doesn't have that lethal power. So nice work there from Matt. I'm looking at a heads up or money line pick that is less than -200, and I'm looking at Charles Johnson over Zhumagulov. So I'll start with Charles Johnson. So Charles Johnson saved the day when he took on a short notice fight against, of all people, Muhammad Mokaev. I mean, it was just almost a sacrificial lamb. Charles Johnson's coming. I mean, it really was. It's like, hey, you want to go in against this killer? And he held his own. He lost, but he lost to decision. Mokaev just wrestled him all fight long, but Johnson was able to get up several times. He did not absorb a ton of damage. And I'm telling you, when these guys come in to save the day on short notice replacement, they always get a gift for doing that. And they get a full camp fight. They get somebody that they have a really, really good shot to beat. And Charles Johnson is going to beat Zhumagulov. Zhalgas is 1-4 in the UFC. He has not lived up to the hype. He's got cardio issues. And the other thing is, Matt, I already mentioned your point about how striking gets rewarded in UFC. His style is to push up against the fence and not do much. And his last fight against Jeff Molina, I thought he easily won the first round, but the judges gave it to Molina despite the fact that Molina was up against the cage for a majority of it. He's not a very polished striker. He's okay with his power, but if you're paying attention, you can see it coming a mile away. He telegraphs his strikes. He gasses hard in the later rounds if he does get into a grappling fight. And Charles Johnson is no joke. I mean, he was the LFA flyweight champion. He defended it several times. He's got really, really good striking that we just didn't get to see against Mokaev. He's got really, really good body shots, especially kicks. He's got a really good front kick. His jab is very, very fast. He's going to be taller. He's going to have a reach advantage. And I think his footwork is just going to run circles around Zhalgas. And this might be one of those things where the UFC can kill two birds with one stone. You can get Charles Johnson a nice fight. You can get him a win. And it kind of puts Zhalgas out of his misery because one more loss, he's probably gone. I'm serious. His fights aren't exciting. He's not winning.
No.
There's better guys to put in that spot. So I think this was a hand-picked matchup for Charles Johnson for saving the day against Mokaev. So give me Charles Johnson on the money line there. So let's do a quick recap here. Main event. Boy, are we all over Spivac for sure. For Parlay Buster, Kyle has Kennedy.
Yeah, do it. Do it, Andy.
Nzechukwu.
All right.
That's not bad. Distance. Matt's going with Turcios and Natividad to go the distance. And I am going to take Charles Johnson at -160 to win straight up over Zhalgas Zhumagulov. So that is it for Inside the Distance. Grab Matt Kowalis' picks at sportsmemo.com. Kyle's 4% pack is up at WagerTalk.com. I have one play and one play only this week up at WagerTalk.com. Gentlemen, I hope we have a great card. It's probably not going to be as exciting as last one, but hopefully it's a profitable one. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next week on Inside the Distance.
Ready to take your favorite WagerTalk handicappers wherever you travel this football season? The WagerTalk TV app is now live for phones, tablets, smart TVs, and streaming platforms. Tune into your favorite shows like WagerTalk Today, Bet on It, and the Opening Line Report. Plus, browse through our extensive library of sports betting tips. Create your personal playlist of betting tip videos to help you prepare for the upcoming season, and set notifications to alert you when new content is added. Download the app for Apple, Android, Amazon, and Roku devices by searching for WagerTalk TV, or scan the QR code on your screen to join the winning conversation today.